If I had to start my natural hair journey all over again, these would be the three main fundamentals that I would focus on, because I strongly believe that they are the main reason as to why I've been able to grow long and healthy hair. We're gonna work from least to greatest. So number 3 is going to be long-term protective styling. Protective styling can sometimes get a bad rep, and I think that that is because, unfortunately, all protective styling is not created equally. For those of you who are not familiar with protective styling, all it is putting your hair into some type of style where your ends are protected and your hair is kind of frozen in place for a period of time so that you do not have to touch it, but you are able to still do some type of regular maintenance on it. And there are different types of protective styles. Some people do locks, some people do mini braids, some people do twists. For me, I did braids with added hair. I liked doing braids with added hair because it allowed me to experiment with different styles, colors, lengths, textures, you name it, I've tried it, and that allowed me to never feel bored with my hair. I also like added hair for long-term protective styling because you're able to extend the hairstyle much longer. When I leave my natural hair in twists, I find that it is still very prone to breakage, to tangling, that I can still kind of snag hairs here and there just because it's still here. It's not as protected as it would be if some of the hair is being hidden or guarded from an added hair extension. But protective styling can also come with drawbacks, and I think that's where sometimes people say, you know, protective styling is not going to grow your hair, it's actually going to cause you to lose all of your hair. And I think that is the case when it's not done properly. The way that you put in the protective style and the way that you take out the protective style, in my opinion, are the most important parts of protective styling. Because if you put in a protective style and you're very heavy-handed with a brush or a comb, or just the way that you section or part your hair in general, you're gonna cause a lot of breakage in that. So even if you're gaining some length and protection from the protective style, you just had like a minor setback from how you installed the protective style, so you may not see it. The second most critical part of protective styling is when you're taking the protective style out. You want to make sure that you have a lot of time, that you've got some oils or butters with you to kind of help separate the hair and not snag as much on each other. I think this is a section where people oftentimes just rush through it. They're trying to do something. They're using, again, brushes and combs to just kind of help get the hair out, and that is where you can get a lot of breakage. There's usually also a lot of shed hair when you're taking out a protective style. So if you're not careful with how you remove that style, maybe you wash your hair and then afterwards you're finding that a lot of those shed hairs are now locked into your hair or matted because you didn't properly detangle your hair before washing it. All of those things are important components when it comes to protective styling. I've made a video in the past about protective styling where I talk about some additional details of how to do it with your hair's health being at the focus. Things like making sure to not have too many sections along your edges and instead having just one braid for the entire section of your edge, and also using a very, very small amount of hair or maybe no hair at all to help preserve it. When I'm doing protective styling, I'm making sure that the health of my hair and my length retention goal is at the forefront. So my style may not look the cutest, but it will be the healthiest for my hair, and since that is my primary goal, that's always gonna come before the style. I think it's also important to mention that when I say long-term protective styling is very important, that doesn't mean that we should be neglecting our hair. I think that's the other part that people sometimes forget about, and then it ends up giving them a bad result. So what I would do is I would put my hair into a protective style. Once I reached a month, I would start to redo every single braid. I would do maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 braids per day, just depending on my schedule, how much time I had. That way I could really go slowly, not rush through it. And it didn't feel like it was too much. It didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to redo all of my hair every month. It felt like I'm redoing some braids on a daily basis. Sometimes I would skip days, but that type of process allowed me to have a new set of braids every month. Because I did that, it kept my shed hair to a minimum. It kept my detangling to a minimum because I was taking it out at a regular basis, as opposed to leaving my hair in those braids for 3 months, never redoing them, and then having to deal with all of the crazy detangling and shed hairs at the end. It's a lot more stressful. It also helps your hair with less breakage when you are maintaining those braids and redoing them frequently, because as your hair grows out, it can cause more tension on those roots, on those follicles, because it's almost like hanging off of the hair. You can feel it. You can feel when your hair has grown out some, especially in your edges area. Your hair has grown out and it's like the braid is hanging on it and you feel that extra tension. That is just going to lead to traction alopecia, which is something that we do not want. So maintaining those braids, making sure that while they're not super tight and trying to pull your brain out, they're also not so loose that it's causing additional unnecessary tension on your hair that can be avoided. The second most important thing that I did to grow my hair was I eliminated all brushes and combs. And if you guys follow my channel, then you've heard this rant before. You know that I'm strongly against using brushes and combs in my hair because I feel that they cause nothing but destruction, headaches, and tears. What I do instead is I solely rely on my fingers to detangle my hair. I know that that can sound like a very big and overwhelming task, and it can be if you allow it to be that, but there are a lot of different strategies and tips and things that you can do to really minimize the time of finger detangling by, for example, breaking it into sections over a long period of time. So like I mentioned with maintaining my braids, I wouldn't take out all of my braids at one time and then redo it, because detangling all of those sections with my fingers all at once would be way too much. I would do just 1 or 2 or 3 braids at a time. Detangling those small sections of hair per day are very manageable for most people. You can do that while you're doing so many different things, watching a show, walking around. Sometimes I'll even do it when I'm driving, which I probably shouldn't because that's not safe, but I'm not recommending that. In my opinion, there is no place, no time in my routine where a brush or a comb ever belongs, because it's always going to cause breakage. And I am someone who doesn't have, you know, very thick density hair. I have 4C, very tightly coiled hair. I need to try to protect every single strand, no strand left behind. And even when I've tried in the past doing things like adding a lot of conditioner, adding a lot of oils and butters, while it may feel like the comb would glide through a little bit easier, it was still causing breakage. Scientifically, our hair is actually at its weakest point when it's wet. So I could tell from the snapping that I was hearing and the amount of hair that I looked at in the brush that there was still breakage happening. So removing brushes and combs from my hair was truly instrumental in reducing breakage. And at first I was like, all right, I'll just, you know, brush or comb my hair on wash days, and then I'll just brush and comb my hair when I'm styling my hair. And I just started to think about the math of, if I do this on every wash day, or if I do this every time I style my hair, and then I multiply that by the amount of times I do that throughout the year or throughout the month or throughout the quarter, I am inflicting breakage. I'm inflicting damage. And this is why my hair is never growing past my shoulders. In order for me to really see the full potential of what my hair is able to do, I have to just get rid of this comb. So I stopped doing that, and I know that it is one of the hardest things to give up, but I think that if you are in a place where you are tired and fed up of not seeing length retention, and you're tired of constantly seeing breakage happening, try giving no combs, no brushes a chance. Give it a chance for just 6 months. If you hate it after 6 months, then okay, at least you gave it a fair shot. But I would encourage you to try it for at least 6 months, and I think that you will end up being very surprised at how much length you're able to retain. Last but certainly not least, the most important thing that I've done to grow long and healthy hair is I worked on keeping a positive and loving mindset about my hair. And I feel like people get tired of hearing about mindset and they just want to hear about application and all that stuff. To me, everything about the actual practices, techniques, and strategies that you do to your hair and the obstacles that you face with your hair, a lot of them come from our mindset. If you don't have a positive, strong, and loving mindset towards your hair, you won't even be able to do the other two steps that I mentioned. Why? So if we take long-term protective styling, for example, I talked about how the most important parts of protective styling is making sure that you are installing the style in a healthy, safe, gentle way, and you're taking the style out in a healthy, safe, and gentle way. If you don't care and respect and truly love your hair, you're gonna be rough with how you handle your hair. You're not gonna be patient and gentle with really trying to take out detangles and really trying to section it softly. You're gonna go to a hairstylist and let them use all kinds of combs and contraptions in your hair just for the sake of efficiency, because it's what they need to do to get you in and out of their chair within a couple of hours, as opposed to requiring yourself or somebody else to really be gentle with how they treat your hair, because they should be respecting it. If you don't love and respect your hair, then you're going to prioritize how a protective style looks on you, as opposed to how does this protective style align with your goals of healthy hair, which means you're going to do things like using lots of jams and gels to try to make your sections look perfectly symmetrical and clean, and make sure that every single hair is, you know, brushed perfectly into place, which it looks good. I'm not going to deny that when we have perfect looking parts that are so intricate and fine, while it looks good, it can be very harmful on the hair. All of that brushing and pulling and tugging and just forcing the hair into a certain style and making it very, very tight and clean, while it can look good to your eyes, it's not good for the health of your hair. It's not good for the health of our follicles. It's why a lot of times people deal with hair loss, especially around the edges, when we're talking about protective styling. And please don't think that I'm preaching at you like I've got this all figured out and I'm perfect. This is something that I've had to frequently check myself on, because I look at our natural hair journey almost like an onion. You accept one part, but then you peel it back and there's a new layer, and then you peel it back and there's a new layer. There are different layers and different levels to how much you can really respect and love your hair. So for me, while I had given up things like brushes and combs, when I was doing certain protective styles, I was still trying to slick down my edges. And it got to a point where I was like, Precious, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to use this toothbrush and this Gorilla Glue or whatever to try to slick down your edges, when you know when you go outside or you go to exercise or you go to take a shower, that cute little design that you just brushed into your hair for the past 5 minutes is gonna go away. It's gonna go away, because that is not what your hair wants to naturally do. Part of respecting my hair is I'm gonna allow you to show up in the world as how you choose to be. I had to eventually accept the fact after a while that these are 4C edges. This is what they look like. All I was doing was causing damage to my edges by trying to force them to be something that they're not. You swoop your edges into a certain style so it can look good for about 8 hours, so that in 6 months you can have even more damaged edges where you don't have any. It doesn't make any sense. And sometimes I'll see some of the most stylish and beautiful, swoopy, curly baby hairs, and I'm like, oh, it looks so good, I just want to go in with my little hairbrush and try, and I gotta be like, no, you don't. You don't need to do that, Precious. You don't need to do that. Stop trying to make your hair into something that it's not. Respect your hair. It's like dating. If you were dating someone, would you want them to constantly try to make you be like somebody else? Or would you just want them to accept you for who you are authentically? That is how I view my hair. I'm in a relationship with my hair, and I need to treat my hair in a way that allows her to flourish while being herself. And when I do that, we're both happy. And that's so important because it truly does apply to everything. I would encourage you to think about your hair routine right now and think of what things am I doing on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis where I am trying to constantly force my hair to do something that it's not, because I am willing to bet that that area, that action is what causes you to be frustrated. It's like when we want our hair to only be super, super defined, and then we go out and it's humid and it frizzes up. We're angry at our hair, but why? It's just being itself. Or we finally are able to get a comb through our hair, and then 5 seconds later there's another tangle and we're angry. Why? It's just being itself. Accepting the fact that my hair does not have to always be fully detangled honestly was a game changer for me and my hair. We really started to become best friends after that because I was no longer angry at her. I was no longer angry at her all the time for making little knots, because it's like, yeah, I know that there are tangles in my hair right now. I know that there will be tangles in my hair tomorrow and every single day after that until the day that I die. But that is the beauty of our hair. That's how it wants to live. Like, if you're a type 4C girly like me, and you go into your natural hair journey with a strong, healthy, loving mindset about your hair, you try to reduce or preferably eliminate the use of brushes and combs in your routine, and you implement some type of long-term or protective styling in general, in my opinion, there's no way that you're not going to see length retention. All it requires is a consistent routine where you are eliminating the most harmful practices to your hair in order for you to really receive and see the full length and potential of what your hair is capable of.